Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Controlled Interests Gamecast, a video game podcast focused on good vibes, thoughtful criticism, and celebrating the things we love about them. I am your host, Jerrad Wyche, and with me today is my co-host, Dominic Orlando.
You know what, Jerrad? The boys are back. Boys are back in town. Feels like an always sunny moment.
Yeah, I mean, you're returning too. We haven't been together in a while. But another returning voice to celebrate the 10th anniversary of this very podcast. We are recording this on the day after the 10th anniversary. We're recording this on March 12th. Longtime co-host, making his first appearance since he stepped away in 2022, Mellow Modus himself, Jordan Jarvis. Welcome back, Jordan.
Do not underestimate the power of PlayStation.
Hell yeah. Glad to have you back. Hearing your voice for the first time in 6 years.
Years, yeah, many
Crazy.
Yeah,
to have us all
thank you
back.
guys for having me back. It's obviously, like I was telling you off mic, Jerrad, you've been doing a great job doing the solo podcasts, bringing the whole thing back. So I've been enjoying that as an audience member, but it's good to be here participating.
I appreciate it. I've been doing my best. Dom left me out to dry for the time being. I'm just trying to do my best hosting by myself. It's tough because, you know, even after you had left, it was Dom and I've always had a co-host to bounce off of. These are the first episodes I think I've ever done. Maybe I did one through the first 10 years of just myself. I always kind of made sure to at least have a guest in case one of you guys wasn't available. So it's a totally new skill set I'm trying to crank out, 10 years after starting this thing back in 2016. So
Hey, shout
you for the
out
kind words.
here on the anniversary episode to all the amazing guests that Jerrad has got on this show, huh, Dom?
Yeah, that's a good call out.
You know, it's crazy. I think about, having Isla from Easy Allies on the podcast, which is really cool. We had Michael Huber from Easy Allies.
Yeah.
Blessing when he was still doing OK Beast before he became the new face of video games over at Kinda Funny. It's really cool to see where. What was that?
I was agreeing with him becoming the new face of video games. I'm glad you mentioned this, Jerrad. It's on the podcast. We'll go ahead and put it on the record. I know you probably still have contact with that guy. You gotta tell him that his Suda 51 interview on Kinda Funny was fucking incredible, dude.
I watched that. It was incredible. It was awesome.
That was an incredible piece of content, and if you didn't love Suda 51 beforehand, you will after.
Yeah, he's awesome. You can have your opinions on his games. I think he's important to the industry. I think he serves the same purpose as Hideo Kojima, but in a different way. I just think, he's an awesome creative to have in the space, and that interview is dope. That being said, it's our anniversary. I thought, what a nice little fun icebreaker for us to get all back together under one household, under one roof. I figured in honor of it, we could do a nice little podcast, a little trivia. You two are supposed to work together, so talk it out. It's, there's right and wrong answers, but don't feel too bad if you get the answer wrong. These are like deep cuts. Some of these are actually trivia I talked about on your farewell episode, back at episode 180, Jordan, which was on March 8th of 2020. 4 years almost to the day of the starting of the podcast. So are you two ready to work together? Two minds meld as one.
I'm ready.
Okay. What game was featured in our first ever episode?
Oh, I know this. Star Wars.
It was
the Division. Dom? I'm talking to Dom.
Is that
here.
your final answer?
Division, Dom?
Yep.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say Star Wars Battlefront like 2015, but I think the main story actually was about the Division. That's
and I'll clarify.
And I'll tell you why. Go ahead, Jerrad.
I was just going to say, I was going to clarify what I mean by featured is it was a thumbnail, it was the title. We obviously talked about more than one game, but I would say this is the featured game.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. The Division.
Because Jerrad was, I'll just use some outside information here. Jerrad was talking to me about this being, one of the first games that we talked about when I mentioned that I was playing Division 2 recently. So, I could be wrong, or I could have been thinking of something different here, but I think it's the Division. Tom Clancy's.
You guys are locking that in?
Let's do it.
That is the correct answer, the Division. Yeah,
Nice.
We talked about false advertising and then our personal hype for the game. I didn't listen to the conversation specifically, But yeah, it was interesting, and we did talk about Star Wars on that episode 2, Dom. So your memory was correct. It just
There we
wasn't the
go.
featured
Yeah.
topic. Question
Shout
number
out to
2.
the Division games. They're not 10 out of 10s. They're not, maybe not Ghost Recon's level, but shout out to the Divisions. I've been playing those games. So
And we're supposed to get like a remaster or something, like a port of the first one to next gen systems. I
yeah,
think
don't hold your breath.
that was like the rumor. Yeah.
It's looking rough on that front, and the stuff that they're releasing for the Division 2 is that's really your only good morsel of anything until you get Division 3 revealed.
Question number 2. In episode 6, we all listed our favorite controllers at the time. Keep that in mind, at the time. Can you name one of the 3 controllers we picked? And I'll give you bonus points if you can pick for each of us what specific controller we picked. And I'll offer one hint if you need it, but we'll do without it for now.
So, Dom, I think for me it would have been DualShock 4. I think Jerrad said GameCube. One of you two said GameCube. Do you remember if it was you?
Oh man, Jerrad had to have said Xbox 360, but it might have been GameCube though for some weird reason. It wasn't me.
I
that said
remember
GameCube.
someone saying GameCube. It still doesn't sit right with me to this day
Yeah.
because the GameCube just ate it, man.
I don't even remember what I said. I might have either DualShock 4 or Xbox 360, one of those two. Probably
It's gonna
DualShock.
be- It's
That
gonna
was-
end up me saying GameCube. It's gonna be the thing.
I think, yeah. Well, let's say, well, we just guess one, I guess, to start.
Should we just? Can we?
You could guess all 3. You could say Jordan guessed this, Jerrad guessed this, Dom guessed this.
So if we get all 3 wrong, can we still get the answer right for just saying that somebody said GameCube?
Sure, but
if that turns out to be correct.
What I'm hoping happens is you at least get 1 or 2 of the 3 right, and then I'll give you a hint for the last one. So we're kind of working through it to see to get you guys to get all 3 right, if that makes sense. So I'm not as harsh on this one. So just you can say Jordan, Jerrad, Dom, and then I'll let you know how many of them you got right and which ones.
So Dom, should we say that I called out the DualShock 4?
Yeah. Yep. Let's lock
Okay.
that in.
Jerrad, is that correct?
Ding, ding, ding. That's 1 correct. Yes.
So we've got a point on this one.
I feel like I feel like I said DualShock 4 too, because at the time, it's 2016.
Yeah.
Like PlayStation 4 had just come out. And I was really high on it. And now I probably would not say DualShock 4.
Okay, interesting. So do you want to lock that in then?
Yeah, let's do it. I said DualShock 4.
That's your lock in?
Yes.
Correct. Ding, ding, ding. You got that right.
Haze. Okay, so Jerrad, did you say? Dom, should we go?
Let me offer a little bit of an explanation real quick for mine. So the category or the question was favorite controller, and in the podcast, I said my favorite controller is this, but if you're telling me what controller I needed to use to game for the rest of my life, it wouldn't be this answer.
Oh,
So I was
GameCube it
picking
is.
favorite, not best.
Okay. So we're going with GameCube, Dom?
Yeah, I say let's do it based on that little hint he gave us.
The Wavebird, Jerrad. Lock it in.
Or the Duke.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I picked the
Wavebird.
GameCube.
Now, I don't blame you, okay? It stuck with me all these 10 years because of the clicking triggers. That's the only thing, Jerrad. You can have the crazy giant A button and the tiny B button and the weird right stick and everything and lacking L1 or whatever. But it's the clicking triggers, man.
Yeah, I get it. It's not a perfect controller. And I think at the time I talked about how one of the bonuses for me was the offset sticks. I've always preferred offset sticks, which I really dug.
Sure.
I'm not that crazy. It's not like I said like the 64 controller, right?
That
or like
would
the
be
Dreamcast
heinous, yeah.
controller or something. Yeah. But I did clarify even at the time. I was like, well, my favorite I would say is a GameCube. But if
Yeah.
you're like, no, you have to pick the controller you can use for the rest of your life, I'm pretty sure I picked the Xbox One controller at that time. So
And do
you guys were right.
still
I'm
think
surprised
that-
you.
I was just going to ask if you still feel like they've refined the controllers over at Xbox compared to 360.
I like the Series controller the best. I think the grips on the back were a really good addition. And the form factor to me is a perfect controller. the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, the Pro 2, when they came for the Switch 2, is also a great controller. I'm not a huge fan of the PS5 controller all that much.
What?
I don't like the bra straps from a visual standpoint.
I've never heard it called that, but I like that.
I also don't like the whole mic situation. The built-in mic situation, I think, is a
Yep.
little bit annoying. Truth be told, I don't use it enough to find comfort in it to where it's my go-to controller. So my opinion isn't even all that valid, to be quite honest, because I don't use it enough to have a proper opinion on it. You know what I mean?
I think
So it's
I think that
probably
the
my favorite
DualSense
now.
is the greatest controller of all time, but I
Yeah.
don't want to hate on you for. I totally get where you're coming from with the bra straps and the mic.
and the offset sticks, right? That's always just going to be
Mm.
preferred for me.
It's got to be, people have their preference.
Its
And I love how
battery is
easy to use with the
booty, though.
PC as well.
This is the worst control because I had game with the DualSense Edge, and it is the worst battery of any controller I've ever had.
Oh, that's unfortunate. How long is it?
Okay, so I could legitimately on a full battery play probably 4 to 5 hours,
Okay.
but
sounds
I just keep a charging cable next to me, and anytime I go to the bathroom or get a drink of water or anything, I just plug it in.
You know, it's funny, when I was listening to the conversation about our favorite controllers, that was yours and Dom's complaint about the DualShock 4. The only thing I hate about it is the battery life.
Yeah.
And then you guys were talking about modding it to remove the light bar, and you
Yep.
could possibly get extra hours from it.
Dude,
That's a good idea.
they improved everything about the DualShock 4, and then the one thing that they needed to nail, they made worse.
Yeah. This is a Jordan-specific question, so you may know the answer, Dom, but I'm... Actually, you know what? Maybe this is better if you stay out of it, Jordan, because you'll know the answer. I want to see if Dom knows it.
Ooh,
And you can help him. You can maybe provide him a hint if he doesn't.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Dom. What term did Jordan use to describe a podcast that only featured two of the three of us on any given episode?
Oh, it's something
Ooh.
like biped or something.
No, you're way off. No.
Like a two.
Actually, I don't
Musketeers.
remember it fully, so I can help him, and maybe we can get it together, Jerrad.
Okay, just think of smooth jazz.
So here's the thing.
Loosely,
Here's the thing,
vaguely.
Dom. I was basing it off of when Colin Moriarty broke away from Kind of Funny and started doing fireside chats at Last Stand Media. But it was was it Fireside Groove?
Oh, yeah. That you're right. You're right. There's something like that. I had a whole totally different vibe.
Lock it in.
Fireside Groove. That sounds right.
Ding, ding, ding. That is correct. Fireside Groove. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the second word until I started talking about it.
That's what I was like. I was trying to give it smooth jazz, Fireside Groove.
Yeah.
And question number 4. This is back to both of you working together again. Out of the first, this is from that 180 episode, your farewell episode. Out of the first 180 episodes of the podcast, where he was one of the main members of the Controlled Interests Gamecast, how many episodes did you appear in, Jordan?
Okay.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna say
most of them. Right? Like
I would say I hit 160 out of 180, right?
that's
Dom?
what I'm thinking. Like somewhere around there.
Maybe 165.
I'll give you a 10 episode window.
Oh wow.
5. I'll give you a 5 episode window.
I should have kept my mouth shut. Dom, do you think 165 is a good answer?
Yeah, let's do it. Because then we're down to between 155 and 175, and that feels like a good range.
Lock it in, Jerrad.
165. I will say you are incorrect. It was 150.
150. Man, I missed
Yeah.
more than we thought, Jerrad. Dom.
But I mean, 30 episodes and 180 is not, I don't think that's a lot. I think that's a
yeah.
really great track record.
150 is a lot.
Yeah, exactly. The 30 is not. The last question. This one is a Dom specific question, but it's so long ago that this isn't like the Fireside Groove thing, so I'm completely okay with you two working together. And I have a hint for you guys on this. because I do think it's a hard question. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but the first episode was very much like a news talk podcast. And then after that episode, we decided we'll do news, but then let's each bring a topic to the show, right? That we can talk about. And it could be a news story, but it could be a specific thing we want to talk about, like our favorite controller, etc. So in that first episode that we did this, in episode 2, what game was the subject of Dom's first ever topic? And like I said, I have a hint because this is a very vague, long ago question. So if you need the hint, I can get it to you right away.
First thing that comes to mind, Dom, is Bloodborne.
Because that had just come out. Like
Within a year, yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Go
two
ahead,
hints.
Jerrad.
One is more vague, one is more specific. I can give you the vague hint. I can kind of
Yeah.
steer you guys a little bit better.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, Dom started the conversation with talking about it being out of his comfort zone. So that should eliminate Bloodborne.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
not
it sure
it.
does. What else did I play
Not
in 2016?
Bloodborne.
I guess it could be anything. Why did I want to
I'll
talk
say
about
this, Dom. And I definitely, I apologize. I didn't give you enough credit back in the day because you were branching out a lot when we started the podcast,
Oh,
getting
yeah.
into indie games, getting into the types of stuff you had never played before outside of your comfort zone. And so,
Dude, I played
I
through
don't know if,
all of Persona 5 Royal, by the way. I don't
okay,
that
there
was
you
after
go.
we
Damn.
left, yeah.
So I don't know
right.
if that sparks any memories for 2016 though, of like
Not really. Like the
things you
first
would have
topic,
gotten into.
what's like the first thing I would have wanted to bring to the table? Having
That's
just
outside of
joined
your
the
comfort
podcast.
zone.
The
it's
second
not
hint will
Souls
help a
related.
lot.
All right,
Okay.
let's hear it.
Nintendo.
Okay,
And,
I should have known that. Well, but
pre-Switch. This
And
is
out of your comfort
pre-Switch.
zone, so it's no
Oh.
Zelda.
I know what it is. Fire Emblem Awakening. No,
Let's
Fire Emblem Fates Conquest or whatever the sequel to the 3DS.
Fire Emblem
game.
if as it was released in Japan, Jerrad.
Is that your guys' final answer? You locking that in?
Yeah, Fates
Lock it.
Conquest, something like that. But yeah,
What a great pull. It was Fire Emblem Fates, Dom. Great,
Yeah.
great pull.
yeah.
We're
I never
fucking
finished it.
murdering these questions.
I got halfway through that game and abandoned.
Yeah, but you're like, I'm branching out. I've never played a Fire Emblem. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, so it was interesting to see what exactly. Because like you said, who would have thought you would have talked about Fire Emblem the first time you got to bring a topic to the podcast? you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
And like I previously mentioned, just some cool dates for us. March 11th, 2016 was the start date of the podcast, and March 8th was Jordan's departure. And now, obviously, we're going to be releasing this on the 13th. We're recording on the 12th, so a day after the anniversary as well. The topic of the show we thought would be fun, since this podcast has been going for 10 years, were our top 10 games of the last 10 years. Now, I'm going to read this out so the audience isn't as possibly confused as you guys might have been with my poorly worded way of pitching this topic. So we'll be going through our top 10 games of the last 10 years, that being 2016 to 2025. Not our GOTY of each specific year, but rather a cumulative list ranking, in our opinion, of the 10 best games that happened to release in that time frame.
Right-ho.
Simple as. The highest point at which a game lands on someone's list is when we'll go into more depth on the title. So the way we'll start each of our entries is we'll say, coming in at number 10 for me is blank. Does anybody have it higher? If no one responds, we'll talk about the game. If somebody says I have it at number whatever, or they could just say I have it higher, so you can leave a little bit of mystery, we'll shelf the conversation to that later point. 10 through 6 will be less in depth, though we'll still talk about it a bit. And our top 5 is where we'll get into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes. Are you guys ready?
I'm prepared.
Okay, so you not being on the podcast forever, Jordan, you get a pick. You want to go first, second, or third?
I'll go first if that's cool with you guys.
And we're going one by one, so it'll be
Right.
your 10, Dom's 10, my 10. Yeah. And who do you want to go second, me or Dom? You can pick the total order. Your choice.
I'm excited to hear what Dom has to say because we've already been talking a lot of games.
Okay, so we'll go.
We'll go Dom second.
Okay, so we'll go you, Dom, me. Alrighty. What is your number 10, Jordan?
So to introduce this one, I just want to say, you gave us the parameters of 2016 to 2025. So that means obviously nothing that came out this year and nothing that came out in the year before we started the podcast, which is 2015. My list would look very different if 2015 was included because that means games like Bloodborne,
Same.
that means games like The Witcher 3 and Metal Gear Solid
Hmm.
5 would all be included here. So I just wanted to give those 3 games a shout out because they were right before we started the podcast. And
It's a
then, like
brutal
I said,
cutoff.
I know, right? And then this year wasn't included. So unfortunately, Resident Evil 9
Oh,
is not able to be on this list, which it would absolutely be on not only my top 10 of the last 10 years, but one of my favorite games of all time now that I've played all the way through it. So shout out to Requiem. But even though we couldn't sneak RE9 on there, we do have Resident Evil 8 Village. So shout out to number 10, RE8.
all right. Nice.
Is that on
Not on
anybody
my
else?
list.
No, no, not me. I was debating Requiem, because I'm not even actually finished with it. I have like just the last, I think, 1 or 2 chapters. But no, I'm with you. Like Requiem has been absolutely sick. Like almost a perfect Resident Evil game.
It
But
feels like it.
Village, I don't know. I wasn't as high on Village, I guess, but it was still like all these Resident Evil games lately have been like just up there in terms of quality in so many ways.
They have been. They have indeed. Yeah. I think that with 8, I know I was a lot higher on it than it seems like most people were, where people liked it but didn't love it necessarily. And I really did love it. It, for me, I actually liked it a little bit more than 7, even though you would think that 7 is kind of the more critically lauded or whatever. But the environment of Resident Evil 8, the enemies, bosses, obviously, which is the, kind of the villains, and that's a whole thing for Resident Evil games is you gotta have a good villain. Um, I don't really care about the ending of the whole Ethan Winter saga. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. That part of the Resident
Same.
Evil story is not where I'm really concerned. But really everything else, I think that it's called Resident Evil 8 Village, so you're in this. It kind of feels like kind of a Blair Witch project, kind of a M. Night
It gave
Shyamalan
me Van Helsing
village.
vibes.
Yeah, so it has this gothic thing going on with this, desolate village in the mountains in the snow with foggy outlooks on everything. And it's just, I'll tell you guys, the setting of games can do so much for me. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's why this game snuck onto the top 10 list is I do really enjoy the gameplay. The story, you know, it has its ups and downs, but like most people, I think that castle at the pretty much the beginning of the game it's one of the top in the series, places to explore. I gotta give a shout out, guys. The most recent Resident Evil games running at 120 frames per second on console. Huge shout out, especially with Requiem launching at 120 frames on PS5 Pro. Uh, that is another
Yeah.
thing. Oddly enough,
Their
like
stuff
the
is
setting.
so optimized. Like even
Mm,
I ended up playing on PS5, but apparently the Switch 2 version is even like really great. So, like they really did things right with their technology on these games.
It seems like the Switch version is one of the more stable AAA games for
Mhm.
Switch 2. Uh, but yeah, I think even just like the setting, it's not necessarily something you would think of that gets a game onto this top 10 list, but absolutely, I would say um, somehow 120 frames makes it that much better. Especially when you're looking at a game so beautiful. It's not like an ugly game that is able to run at a higher frame rate because of how ugly it is. It's an exquisitely detailed mansion that you're in at the start or castle, I should say.
Well,
And
and you got Lady Dimitrescu, that whole
yeah,
thing.
Lady D. And
Well, and them tying it to the overall Resident, like tying it back to the overall Resident Evil narrative was cool too. A lot of people didn't see
exactly,
that coming.
exactly. I think that I think you do have to be a real Resident Evil nerd to kind of understand the strings that they're pulling out with the lore and stuff in 7, 8. Well, not as much 9, but definitely 7 and 8.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
goes right
I'd
over
save
So
my
my
yeah,
head.
video for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, like I said, the story with Ethan Winters, it definitely leaves a lot to be desired, but it's a horror game and the atmosphere, man, is just about as you could possibly ask from a game. And in some parts is even better than Requiem, as much as I love RE9. So my number 10 is Resident Evil 8.
Your go.
Yeah, so like I didn't even consider cutting off 2026 because yeah, Requiem almost made it onto my list at the 10th spot,
So good.
but
Big shout
instead,
out.
yeah, but instead I went down a similar path though, and I got Alan Wake 2 at number 10.
Okay.
Because
Hell yeah.
I love the first. Well, either you guys have this game on your list.
No.
Didn't make the top 10, unfortunately, no.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean I loved the first game when that first came out on Xbox 360, and then to wait this long for a sequel and then to have it be kind of a shift in genre, or at least in
Definitely a
style.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, where now it's like really leaning into the survival horror aspect of it, and less kind of the arcadey aspects. I don't know. Well, that's not even the right word, arcadey, but it was just different. It had a different feel. Um, but
It
then,
wasn't as hardcore survival horror in the first game for sure.
yeah, it wasn't about like resource management and jump scares necessarily. There may have been a few, but then like it did all that survival horror stuff like really really well, like as good if not better than a lot of the Resident Evil games. But then also just the story was just like the type of setting and story that I've really been into lately of like detectives and supernatural like type of stuff kind of crossing over, and you never really know like what's real kind of a thing. Um, then like more than anything, it was just so goofy and cool. It had so much personality in a way that worked really well for it. Um, a lot of the music in this game was so cool. Um, like a lot of original songs that they put together, and the way they worked that into the gameplay was all very like everything had a purpose. It kind of reminded me of like God of War 2018 in that way, where everything that
Mm,
happened in the game, every function of the game that you're doing, like made sense in the context of that world. Um,
isn't that the best
yeah,
games? Like anytime you feel like you're playing one of your favorite games of all time, I feel like it's because all of those pieces sing like you're saying, Dom.
yeah, where it's like you don't like question like Dead Space, the health bar is on the back of your suit,
Yeah,
right? It makes perfect
exactly.
sense, and it communicates a health bar instead of having like a goofy UI element. So like
Yeah.
Alan Wake 2, really good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was bummed that he didn't make my. I love that game, but like we play so many games. There's so many good games that you have to leave some stuff off, right? So
Yeah.
it was kind of tough to leave it off my list as well. My number 10, I have Celeste. Is that on anybody else's list?
No,
Okay.
but I can't wait to hear you talk about it, Jared.
Well, I'm a mark for a good platformer. So when there were previews happening, I think also as a podcast we made fun of the developer's name, which at the time was Matt Makes Games.
Oh
And we
my
were like, what a
gosh.
dumb name for a
You
developer.
changed it.
Yeah. So I remember
Whoops.
seeing the previews for the game, and I was like, oh, this looks like a very challenging, dope platforming game. Really cute aesthetic. And then when you get in there and you start playing Celeste and the narrative is delivered to you, you realize it's a really well done piece about trauma and grief and dealing with the darkest parts of yourself, and marrying that, like you said with Alan Wake 2, is like when all of these parts of a game are done so well and they feel so natural to the experience where one isn't taking away from the other and it just sings in perfect harmony. It's just a magical experience, and you'd be hard pressed for me to find a pixel perfect platformer like that marries narrative the same way and hits just as hard, because there's plenty of games I play where the gameplay is very good, give like a Prince of Persia the Lost Crown, but the narrative's like whatever, it's not really that enticing. Or you get other games where like obviously the narrative is really good but the gameplay might be lackluster. And for Celeste, in a genre where you don't necessarily even get the narrative elements, I think it did it so well, and it's unfortunate that their latest project, Earthblade, got canceled. I was really looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
So I'll have to wait even longer for the next game. But yeah, Celeste is
I didn't know
awesome. It's
about
definitely
that.
in my. Yeah, Earthblade got canned. They wrote a whole blog post about it, talking
Can you
about it
tell me
just
a
wasn't
quick,
working.
like a quick deal about what it was? The game.
So, from what I remember, it was supposed to be an RPG that visually looked very similar to. Oh, damn. What's the one that came out recently that was two main protagonists and you had a mechanic where like you would attack and then it'd bounce back at you and if you timed it correctly it would hit again? Sea of Stars?
Oh,
Oh
Is that the right
yeah.
name? Yeah, it was, and I'm vaguely remembering the short, so I might be partially wrong, but I for sure know it was supposed to be an RPG, so they were going away from the platformer genre. Beautiful art style. Actually, no, it wasn't that. Now I'm remembering it was a 2D. It was a 2D game. I am getting it mixed up with something else. But anyways,
But it was a
they
fantasy
did.
thing and it got canceled.
It got canceled. It was the original developer of Celeste and the music composer, I believe, from Celeste, and they wrote a blog post talking about how they just didn't like weren't connected to the project anymore, and they felt that going through with it and seeing it to its end
yeah.
wouldn't do justice to anybody.
Like they didn't
And
have the
yeah, it was a
passion
real
for it
bummer.
almost.
Yeah, it was like partially the
Huh.
passion, partially the it was a very vaguely worded post where it just seemed like some people speculated there may have been a falling out between them, right? So who knows exactly? It is a bummer. But regardless, even though Earthblade never came out, we still have Celeste, and
Yes.
I think that game will age perfectly. And I'm honestly looking to hopefully return to it maybe this year or next when I have some time because it's not a very long game either. The collectibles were done really well. I just think it's an amazing game, and it's probably on my indie game Mount Rushmore for sure. It's just that
Okay.
perfect of a
great pick.
game in many ways. Yeah, so that's my number 10.
Well, I hate to hear that, Jared, but I'm glad you have Celeste to keep you in control.
Ooh, good pick.
Number 9 is Control on PlayStation 4.
Shout out Remedy.
Yeah, I was gonna say connects in story to your Alan Wake 2, Dom, which um, they're very different games. So, uh, Control is like a third person action game where you play as this levitating superhero. Kind of you're throwing things with telekinetic powers, and you have these
Not on my
firearms
list, by
that
the
are.
way.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask.
No problem, no problem. Yeah,
Dom,
you're good to go.
Dom, is Control on your list?
No, not me either. Could have been.
Yeah, and then you have these firearms that are like this, kind of like you were saying in Alan Wake 2. It's a lot of supernatural stuff going on. So, it has a really cool story that I think is going to really pay off when we see Control Resonant. I'm not sure if it's necessarily Control 2, but it's at least the sequel to this first game. We'll see if the story pays off then, but really uh, the main aspect here and what you'll see in a lot of my list is gameplay. Um, as you guys know, one of my favorite Xbox games of all time is Quantum Break, also from Remedy. And that game is very similar to this one, gameplay wise, if you really look at the lineage. Um, and I don't know, I would say Control is a lot better just because you can get up off of the ground and fly around. The levitation aspect of it kind of, I don't know, it makes it a whole lot better for me.
It feels
The
so
Um,
removal
good.
of all
The
the TV
controls so
elements too helps make it more
yeah, I was
focused.
Jared, I was like pausing for a moment because I didn't even know if I should go into the TV stuff on Quantum Break. But yeah, they basically have a TV show, these hour-long episodes that had all these amazing actors and decent production value, but this wasn't really worth watching. So Control is more of that all killer, no filler. And I think that's what makes it so great. It has a lot of the remedy aspects that Dom mentioned in Alan Wake with the incorporating music, and it has these kind of specialized sequences or set pieces that uh, really turn it into this crazy mind-bending experience. And even if you don't like the moment to moment of the cutscene story, there's this whole other story of kind of the world of Control that you're in. Um, this giant building that kind of changes itself as you move through it, if that makes sense. So you're going through and trying to cleanse the whole thing. And yeah, I think it's one of those things where I look at the new Control game and I just got really into hack and slash games, and you would think that I'd be really excited for that, but I love the gameplay of Control 1 so much that I am a little bit bummed that the new game isn't gonna have these telekinetic powers that we've been talking about. So, um, fortunately, we have Control now. Guys, I do have to mention this, a technical situation I had with this game. Uh, I was playing the PlayStation 4 version on PlayStation 5 because you might remember they didn't give you a save transfer on this particular version. That was kind of a controversy, but nonetheless, I was playing through the actual Alan Wake DLC on Control on the final boss, Dom, and the game crashes out. It corrupts my save, and I would basically have to start the entire DLC over again.
Oh, okay. That's that's an uninstall when that kind of thing happens.
That
I
is
feel like.
exactly what happened. You know damn
Yeah.
good and well. Like,
Yeah.
not okay, Remedy. So I just need to go ahead and mention that because it was, like I said, kind of a controversy the way they did Control Ultimate Edition on PS5, and it wasn't, I wasn't able to play it at 60 frames. I just had to finish my save file there. Uh, I remember Jerrad telling me like, "Yeah, you're really close to the end," and I just put the game away for several years. Eventually came back to it and started playing through the DLC after finishing the ending, and just, yeah, man, you can't do that. You can't do that to somebody. That's fucked up. So,
And yet it's
um,
on the list because it's that good.
but the full game, I wasn't in love with the DLC, especially because I didn't even feel like, they hyped up this whole connection between Control and Alan Wake and the Remedyverse and all this stuff. And when it all played out with Alan Wake 2, I was like, why did you even have that DLC in Control? Like, it was barely worth it. There's like one cutscene with Alan Wake. But it just, I know there's all these files you can read and shit, but it just was not all that it was cracked up to be. So, um, the core game of Control itself is certainly my number 9 choice because that is such a fun experience. And if you haven't checked it out, I would highly recommend it.
Shout out to the Ashtray Maze. And SCPs
Yeah,
in general, like SCPs are one of my favorite things that have come about on the internet in the last like decade to half decade. Just all the random government experiments and a chair that if you look away it kills you and all. I just love all that stuff. So cool.
if you're into wacky, weird, supernatural sci-fi, Control is the game.
X-Files
For
type
sure.
shit.
You know,
Yeah. Twin Peaks. Uh, Dom, what is your number 9?
All right, we're gonna keep having fun because my number 9 is Persona 5 Royal. Uh,
nice. Not on my list.
Not on mine either.
ooh, interesting. Um, no, because like I said at the time, this was a huge branching out type of game for me. Hadn't really played a JRPG except for maybe Pokemon up to this point in my life. I don't
Okay.
know. That's probably not entirely true. There might be something I'm forgetting, but more or less, certainly never played anything, you know, visually that was this anime. Uh,
Okay.
up to this point. And so this was, and obviously it's a huge game, and yet there I found myself in I think 2021 when they released this, kind of not remastered, but this DLC included edition of the game, which is still hard to explain, at least for me who's not as familiar with these types of setups. But anyway,
The final cut, if you will.
yeah, that's a better way to put it. Um, but yeah, no, I ended up just really falling in love with the story of this game and all the characters, and they each the best way I felt to describe it was like each it was like seasons of a TV show. So even though this whole
Mm.
game was like ended up being like 120 hours or something in that range before I was done, um, each character kind of had like a really long arc that um, was a huge chunk of that of the game, and then eventually closes out. And it felt like the end of a show, of a season of TV. And then the next season would kick up. we're kind of onto a new storyline. We're going to a couple different new places, meeting a new person or two, and that kind of thing. So like, even though it's a super long game, you don't ever really feel like that. It just feels like this thing you're investing in, and it's incredible. And yeah, I just couldn't believe how into I got into these characters I got. And
Yeah.
that's not to say like the combat was pretty fun too. It was all really cool and stylish, and that was super fun. Like,
The
but
music.
honestly, it's the music. Yeah, that's I can't forget about the music. I still listen to the soundtrack sometimes, like while working or something like that. Um, it's just nice to have that in the background. I feel like it makes you focus a little bit or something.
Definitely.
But yeah, even like I don't know, the combat doesn't seem like anything that inventive or new or crazy.
No.
As far as like some when I think of like especially nowadays, I think of like Claire Obscure with like the just the most like super innovative kind of JRP or RPG combat. But this was not that yet. I was fully invested in it all the way through all those hours. So I feel like that says a lot. Especially in a time where I don't know, ever since being an adult, I feel like I crave the 10 to 15 hour games more, just because it's
Right.
easier to get through. So I feel like it says a lot that I played this whole last game and got that
Yeah.
into it, and yeah, ton of fun.
Are you going to play 6, or you think 5 was your Persona experience and you're like, I'm good, I got my taste?
I really want to play 3 now that
Nice.
the like Reloaded or
Reload,
whatever the
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
now that that's on Switch, because I think it took a minute to get to ported to Switch or something to that effect. I'm kind of waiting to have it more portable. So um, that's one that like, not that I need to add anything else to the backlog nowadays, especially a
Yeah.
super long game. But I do want to play 3 Reloaded.
Cool. Number 9 on my list. I'm assuming one of you'll probably have it higher. God of War 2018.
Not on my
Yep,
list.
it's on mine.
Yeah. Okay. Jordan, hit us with your number 8.
Um. So, are you not going to talk about that game at all?
No, I will when we get to Dom, since it's higher on
Oh,
his
I'm
list.
sorry. Yeah,
That's when
of
I'll chat
course.
about it.
Dom
Yeah.
has it higher. Number 8. Okay, so this is. Let me double check here. This is the only game from last year on my list, and I wouldn't even say it's like, well, not my favorite gameplay game of last year, but it's my favorite story of last year easily, and one of my favorite video game stories ever. Number 8 is Silent Hill F.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
cool, nice. I want to hear about this.
On
I
Not on
haven't
my
played this one.
list.
Not on either of your lists. Okay. So, um, quick performance side note here. I played this on my Xbox Series X as opposed to my PlayStation 5 Pro because, of course, when this game came out, we did not have PSSR 2.0, and there's a shimmering in the bushes, like the shadow, well, not just the bushes, but the bushes that you see, or just any like shadows, uh, corners of buildings or whatever. There'll be the black shadow will be just glitching out and shivering to the point where I was like, "There's no way I'm playing this whole game like this." So, um, Konami's return to games, triumphant as it has been, and as glad as I am to see them with stuff like Metal Gear Solid Delta and Silent Hill F and now Castlevania, they are definitely still shaking the rust off as far as performance goes because both this and Delta were rough. So, you guys know me. I always like to put that type of stuff out there because it is important. So, played this game on Xbox, and it, you know, we've been talking about Resident Evil here. Obviously, I've been getting into the whole survival horror game situation, and none of those games have the best combat. That's kind of part of the genre is that you're really on your back foot as far as combat goes. Silent Hill F is absolutely no different. You are, you know, uh, this high school girl in Japan with a pipe in her hand. So obviously she's not, you know, Solid Snake, okay? She's not like taking people down or taking monsters down in the way that these action hero characters would be another game. So if you can get down with that, it's really not that fun from a swinging this pipe wildly around perspective. Uh, the combat is not going to draw you in, but if you can get down with that part to go through this incredible tale that they've told, very, very scary. You do have to be into horror if you're going to check this game out, but if you can get down with some of these things that I've mentioned here, the story is so intense and so um, really just grabs a hold of you and doesn't let go. And even when it ends, it doesn't let go because you're going to be thinking about it long after the credits roll here. Um, if you're down to take that journey, I think that you'll be very pleased with it because the story and the cutscenes just it had me with my jaw on the floor, and I'm talking serious, like I was just sitting there, mouth agape, looking at the screen for minutes at a time. Like, could not believe they were going there. So, obviously, there's a certain amount of vagueness that I'm having here, just because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But it's really well worth the journey, and uh, another game where the setting, the atmosphere, the music, it all makes that gameplay that isn't quite as fun, or the combat, I should say, that isn't quite as fun, that much more worth it and really brings you in. Very scary game. The other side of the gameplay would be kind of the puzzles and the exploration. Those are a little bit better. Uh, and to those that look at a Resident Evil game or a Silent Hill game and say, oh, those puzzles where they make you find these random chess pieces to unlock this door or whatever the fuck, it can get cumbersome and tedious. I get that, but I really felt like Silent Hill F kind of it brings you in and allows you to understand for the most part what it's asking of you in these puzzles to the point where they can actually be fun. Enough of a challenge to where you don't feel like they just handed it to you, but still a little bit of mystery to get involved in. And so, yeah, specifically for the story, Silent Hill F is my number 8.
Oh yeah,
I want to check
I want
that
to get
out.
to it eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth playing. It's not like, especially with the performance and with the fact that the combat isn't, completely amazing. I would say that this is a game that you might pick up on a sale and get a lot of value out of.
Hell yeah. What's your number 8, Dom?
Hollow Knight.
There we go.
Is this on either of you guys' list?
No,
No.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe Jordan had this. But no,
no,
this was actually I'll start. The one thing I don't love about it is like the platforming when it's in there with the combat.
I think that's why it's not on my list, Dom.
um because I've finally like starting to accept that I guess I'm just not a big platformer guy. Um,
Okay.
like even like going back to when I played Mario Odyssey, I'm like, oh, this is really good, but like I think I just don't enjoy platforming just in general, whether it's 3D or 2D. Um, but then yeah, in Hollow Knight, when you combine that with like the challenging combat, that was kind of the one thing that I'm like, all right, this is just a little bit too freaking much. With
Yep.
the difficulty, like when you had to bounce on top of stuff and like time jumps and dashes in a particular way. I'm like,
Yes.
but after that, oh, one of the best games ever. Just the coolest. Again, similar to what I said about Alan Wake, where Hollow Knight just has like a ton of really cool personality. Um, the world you're in, even though it's like 2D and very simple, it like just looks incredible, and it's this cool underground, you know, bug-filled world, and all these different bugs you meet are like the ones you talk to are just hilarious in a charming way, even if they're like jerks sometimes and things like that. Like just the sounds they make, just the way everything is in that world is just like really lovable. Um, and I do like some good Metroidvania. Unlock an ability that opens up a new area. And so it's really good about that kind of stuff. And though the combat is obviously really challenging too, and super rewarding when you start to learn the patterns take down enemies, especially some of those bosses. So yeah, I had so much fun with Hollow Knight and just a whole great experience, which I want to say like at least like a 30-hour game, like very beefy.
Oh yeah.
And it costs, I want to say like either 15 or $20 only at launch.
Yep.
So
All the
they really,
DLC's free.
yeah, they gave out they put out some DLC that was already included. So they packed in so much value. Um, and I'm probably only halfway through Silk Song at this point. I've really been trying to
Nice.
grind my way through because like, it's just so difficult. I think it's even harder than the first game.
Oh,
So that's
easily.
why, yeah. So like maybe in a while I'll think Silk Song is the better game and I could swap it on this list or something like that. But for now, like Hollow Knight
Nice.
did it first. Um, and so yeah, that's my 8.
It's
Nice.
funny you mentioned Hollow Knight and then you mentioned Odyssey. Those are the two games, 11 and 12, that were left right off my
Ah,
list.
Oh
nice.
Yeah.
wow.
My number 8, I'm assuming once again, Dom probably has this on his list higher than me. Sekiro?
Um, no, see, I thought about it, but it didn't make it.
Okay.
Not on his list.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it on your list, Jordan?
It is not.
Okay, I won't go too long on it. So Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, the Activision published FromSoft game, more focused on parrying and stamina, uh, and what was the name of the mechanic in it? The stance mechanic, where you break their stance. Ah man, it's escaping me.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
The
wouldn't know.
the whole core of it, Dom. Uh, you break somebody's stance.
I
They
know
have the
that.
red bar at the top.
Yeah, and once you break down their stamina enough, then you can go in for the killing blow once the
Like a
red dot
staggering system.
appears.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I forget the name of it.
it's
But
basically
anyway,
it replaces like health bars, really. Like
yeah,
the bosses don't have big health bars; they have like 3 guard breaks that you have to win or whatever.
yeah, and I think it really changed up the Souls formula in a way that made it refreshing.
Mhm.
The world itself is really cool. I think they do some fun stuff with like the spectral ghost enemies that at first when you fight them, you're like, well, how am I supposed to kill this thing? And they just kind of wipe you and you can't really do any damage. The whole guardian ape fight is, I think, one of the most
Cool.
iconic fights in From history. I think that was a whole moment in the internet era of watching people streaming that game, finding out what happens in that fight, and I'll still keep it vague for people who want it to be a surprise or maybe playing through the From catalog for the first time. But it had so many fun surprises. I love the idea of the time travel in it, Dom, and fighting different bosses multiple times, and they change up their move sets. I just found it so refreshing for a series that I've played so many games that are very similar in a lot of ways, and I hope one day we'll get a sequel. I think it's kind of in a place that Bloodborne is, where it was a one-off publishing deal where we likely won't get another one, unfortunately. But it felt so unique to what we expected from Software at the time. And I do think, in the same way that Bloodborne kind of stands on its own away from the rest of the games, I do think Sekiro does that just as well. Because I think oftentimes when we talk about the Souls games, you can kind of put together even Demon Souls with Dark Souls and Elden Ring and kind of pick your favorite of that same core set of Souls experiences. Whereas comparing them to Sekiro or even Bloodborne to some extent, or it's a little bit harder and they kind of stand out a little bit more. So I really enjoyed my time with Sekiro, and I think it was a really fun mechanic of being able to get up, and it kind of alleviated. Not to say it's an easy game; it still is a very difficult game. Shout out Demon of Hatred, one of the hardest Souls bosses of all time.
Mhm.
But I think adding that extra life system and then a third life if you upgraded enough really added a difference to the whole Souls formula for me.
Yeah, yeah, that it almost made my list too. I'll always remember the first time you beat Genichiro. That's like what I imagine it's like to, I don't even know, shoot up heroin, but without all the bad,
Sent to heaven.
awful addiction. Just like the highest high. It's like that. Some of those bosses, when you try them for hours and hours, like Sekiro had the most probably rewarding combat when you finally overcome those challenges.
And some annoying bosses like the bull, the first bull you meet at the gates, and you're like, how am I supposed to fight this thing? And
Oh yeah.
the grapple system was a really cool change up. But yeah, shout out to Sekiro. Jordan, what is your number 7?
My number 7, guys, I definitely didn't do any remasters on this list because I felt like that would just be cheap. I wasn't into
Yeah.
that, right?
I agree.
There is one remake on that list. Now, if I put Resident Evil on the list, and if I put Silent Hill on the list. And you know damn good and well I put Dead Space on the list, and that's the remake from a few years ago.
Hell yeah.
On PlayStation 5, another performance alert here. At launch, it had a really weird texture bug that made it look so low res. I was almost like, why did you guys remake this game in the first place? It was very muddy. I think that's been fixed since. Uh, I did play it on a standard PS5 when it launched, and um, also note that I recently replayed the original Dead Space within the last month or
Nice.
so. Uh, so speaking from that perspective here in 2026, the remake is very close, and it does play it very faithfully. There are a couple of changes that now that I've gone back to the original, I wish that they had just kept the same. You know, I don't think that they needed to put a voice actor in for Isaac Clarke, for example, and uh, basically making the anti-gravity scenarios work the way that they did from 2 onward. Uh, I just I didn't feel that they were ever uh, really bad or too much of an issue in Dead Space 1. I do think that it's improved in 2, but uh, knowing what I know now, like I said, having recently replayed the first game, the the only flaw in that original game for me is kind of the set pieces and the boss battles. They're just not up to par with the rest of the game. So, uh, it's kind of like take some, leave some as far as the things that they changed or improved on Dead Space Remake. Some of it I do think that is warranted, and some of it is just not completely necessary. But uh, you still have the same respect for the atmosphere that I was looking for. You know, the audio, not just the music, but the audio
Oh
design
yeah.
is a gigantic piece of the puzzle, really in any survival horror game, but specifically in Dead Space. Um, I was telling my brother recently that I think Dead Space is the scariest game that I've ever played. Um, and I can say that even now, having gone through a lot more Resident Evil titles.
Oh,
And
separately,
Silent, go ahead.
uh, separately, Jordan, you and I are gonna have to talk about a little game called Visage.
Yeah,
That
that's on my wish list on PlayStation.
oh,
PT like, isn't it?
mm-hmm. We'll see. Like
So
when you're done with that, I want to know if that's your new scariest game because it's certainly my scariest game ever played.
recently, my brother was talking to me about this game that he was so freaked out by, describing me playing, and it turns out that he was describing PT.
Oh,
And he was talking about how he still has nightmares of this screaming fetus in a sink. Like
Jesus.
you're talking about PT, man. So that's basically, Visage, I think, is along those lines. But
Oh,
with Dead Space remake, if you haven't played either it or the original, I think they're both worthy of your time. And basically, you're just stranded on this space station with all sorts of horrendous monsters coming after you. It's got the science fiction aspect. It's got the scare aspect. Personally, I think that the combat is some of the best that the survival horror genre has to offer.
yeah,
Um,
I'd agree.
really, really unique combat. I mean, some of the most unique third-person shooter combat of any video game that I've ever played. And
And
Dom, even
to back it
go
up
ahead.
though, like that combat like still holds up today because I also played that remake and
Yep.
that that combat still holds up today and still feels like fresh and innovative.
Yeah.
The limb system and the way the different guns work in and like how they affect the limbs differently, like that all still feels like as cool as I remember it feeling at the time. It's not like
Yep.
it doesn't feel old and washed.
Yep. And jumping off of that, going back to the original from 2008, all of that stuff still feels like you said, so fresh, so um, totally innovative and totally cutting edge. And we're talking about 2026 now, and a lot of people still haven't kind of caught up to these things from almost 20 years ago with this game. So, um, Dom, you mentioned it earlier in the show with the implementation of the user interface in the environment, where you have the health bar on Isaac's spine. You have his ammo counter being displayed on his gun. Whenever he brings up the map or his inventory, uh, you, the player, are looking at it, but he is also looking at it through his kind of hologram system in his suit. So um, just just an unbelievable amount of innovation in the game and creativity when it comes to gameplay mechanics. So uh, Dead Space is one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, we're talking top 10 easily, maybe top 5, and still holds up. Uh, so yeah, the remake is absolutely on this top 10 of the last 10 years. Big shout out to Dead Space.
Oh yeah. Number 7 for you, Dom.
7. Oh, okay. Wow, I like my list a lot. As weird as it is. 7 for me is Dragon's Dogma 2. Um,
Not
it's
on my list.
yeah, I don't imagine it would be on a lot of people's list. It's definitely one of those things that like if you're like me, like one of these weirdos that got into it, we got really into it. Um, uh, it's a it's like a systems kind of game, where everything just exists and is put out in the world and functions a certain way, and you just go and interact with it all, and it whatever happens happens. So it feels almost kind of like in a way that like people described, like a Baldur's Gate 3, where like you're truly just doing whatever. Kind of feels
Mm.
like that, except action focused and not turn based. Um, but just I had so much fun with this game. I had played the first one a bunch, but never even finished it. Just couldn't really dig into it for some reason. But as soon as they announced the second one, I thought, okay, I'm gonna try this series out more earnestly, and I'm glad I did because like I was obsessed with that game for a couple of months. Like that was just all that was going on. So I was just messing around and climbing monsters, and the first time you go to grapple onto a griffin after it lands, thinking like whatever, what could happen? Like I can get a dagger into the back of its neck for a bunch of extra damage, and all of a sudden it just takes off, and then you're like 4,000 feet in the air, terrified, holding onto the wing of a griffin. Um, yeah, it's like it just had so many set pieces that were created naturally by your own play. It was
Mm.
That's probably the best thing I can say about it. It's like it's just such a cool experience, in a different kind of way. Like there's a story and it's fine, it's good. There's not really characters; they're all kind of made up. Like that, the whole pawn system is really cool. How you can rent you know, other people's characters that their sidekicks basically. You can go and rent them out, things like that. But it's not like a character-driven game whatsoever. It's more about just that gameplay and like the world and the pieces and the things that it gives you to go mess around with, or what makes this one cool. So yeah, big shout out Dragon's Dogma 2. Another sequel like way later, years after the original game.
Yeah.
On my backlog. I want to get to it. I own the game. I bought it at release, I think, and then just never got around to it. And yeah, it's because of all the systems people were talking about and how fun and how natural and spontaneous the game felt moment to moment. So I'm excited to eventually get to it at some point. My number 7 is Marvel's Spider-Man.
Nice.
Is it on your guys' list?
Yep.
No.
Okay, so I'll wait for Dom's entry once again. So, Jordan, what is your number 6?
Very nice. Number 6 is another favorite games of all time, ladies and gents. This is the sequel to the reboot from 2016 called Doom. This is Doom Eternal.
Oh, nice. Good pick.
On either of your lists?
Nope.
No, I have yet to get to it, unfortunately.
So Doom 2016 uh, kind of reworks the series. It's a soft reboot and gives you this high-paced, high-intensity action, all about the combat chess, and meant to be extra difficult, meant to be brutal, crazy heavy metal soundtrack pumping in your ears. It's just, it's an experience more than anything. And Doom Eternal takes this game and makes it so much goddamn harder. It's like, it is insane. And then the DLC, The Ancient Gods, makes it even crazier than that. So I've gone through all that stuff at this point, gone through the horde mode, and I can just tell you, especially knowing both of you guys enjoy hard games, uh, this is as far as shooters go, this is one of the pinnacles. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
Because
man,
like
I go ahead.
out of the out of these three new ones, Eternal, 2016, and then the latest one, gosh, I can't
Dark
remember what it's
Ages.
called. Dark
Dark Age.
Ages. I think Eternal is definitely the best out of those three. Granted, that's the only
Yeah,
three games I played, but no,
I
yeah, the steps it took above, like it added like a lot of like verticality, I guess. Like the levels got like way taller and more intricate. Like there's way more puzzles that were fun. So it was a cool game.
yeah, I think all three of those games would have been eligible for this list, and Eternal won it out because I definitely think it's the best. I think that you
Mhm.
could make a case that 2016, there's some there's a few little gameplay tweaks that like you might like one better than the other for preferential reasons. But for me, Eternal has the dash. And you guys know if there's a dash in a video game,
That's
I'm
right.
on that
That's
shit,
right.
right? So that's a huge reason why Eternal wins out because you can just be for me, this game is the definition of when we talk about flow state in gaming. This is the game that gets me there. This is the game that shows you what that state can feel like. How amazing. Video games are fun stories that we play through. They're fun gameplay challenges. They're fun puzzles, and it's a brain twister that you have to get through. But when you hit that flow state, that's a completely different feeling from all those other things I just mentioned.
For
And
sure.
And when a game can get you there, it's really something special. So, as hard as it is, and it's one of the hardest games I've ever played, uh, and it does, I will be honest, it's software, man. They get a little too crazy with it during certain points where you're like, okay,
Hmm.
dude, this really, you're not doing justice to how amazing your game is by just kind of like throwing shit at the wall and seeing if you can defeat the player, basically. Um, but if you can overcome the challenge, I just think it's well worth it. And I'd recommend the DLC as well, Ancient Gods. Uh, just a hell of a time, and that is pun intended. So, uh, highly, highly recommend Doom Eternal if you are into uh, difficult games, challenging scenarios, intense experiences within the world of gaming. That is something to look for.
What is your number 6, Dom?
Oh, we're down to six. Oh, okay. This is where like things start to get. I could jumble the next six up and any given day, and I'd be fine with the order. Because the next one I got is Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, which
Nice. Not on my
somehow.
list.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah, I know it's not gonna be on Jared's. I don't think you played that.
Yeah.
Um, but not on yours then, Jordan.
I haven't gotten to Tears yet because I recently, when they did the Switch to 60 frame versions for both of those games, I got both and finally finished playing through Breath of the Wild,
Nice,
which
nice.
enormous upgrade on Switch 2 with the 60 frames, guys, if anybody's out there looking
Okay.
for them. Um,
I've been, trying to justify a replay on both of these in Switch 1, so that's good to hear.
yeah. So
Um,
I haven't got to Tears yet.
it is somehow better, uh, which like like at the time Breath of the Wild I really loved. I like the scale and just the sense of like going and figuring things out on your own and just like wandering around and like just finding uh, something about it. Just the exploration in that game was next level.
Yeah.
That said, like the the weapon durability was something that like I never really got into in Breath of the Wild. I kind of just found it more like tedious. And I just wanted like I wanted a master sword that was like the coolest weapon, kind of a thing.
Right. Right.
Uh, and they don't like they stick with it in Tears of the Kingdom, but it's better. Like it's actually like well done and more thought out. It's more like in this time around, basically, it got me excited to try out new weapons. In a way that Breath of the Wild didn't. So I feel like they improved that, but the whole ability system is just like way next level in Tears of the Kingdom. And then of course also the way you can like build stuff and connect it together and then do all sorts of nonsense with that. Draw like a lot of similarities with how I explained Dragon's Dogma 2, um, where just they kind of just put the systems all out there and let you go nuts with it. And you can do all sorts of insane stuff. So and the other thing with Tears of the Kingdom, the story is maybe the best story in a Zelda game ever. Um, that could also be, I might say that about Ocarina of Time though, so that's a tough one. But yeah, definitely like a way more cohesive and more engaging story than what they did for Breath of the Wild. And just a great story in general. That
That's good to
by
hear.
the end of it, I was kind of like had like a jaw dropping moment, like you described earlier, Jordan. At the
Nice.
conclusion of this game, so it's an incredible game.
Number 6 on my list, once again, I assume is also on Dom's list and probably higher. Elden Ring.
Yes, it is in
Yes.
fact.
Okay.
Can I
You
just say,
spurned
since
me
you
for.
mentioned that, Jerrad, that is one of my
Yeah.
honorable mentions. It's to me, since Bloodborne's not in the running, it's kind of my only from software that I would really consider for this list.
Uh
Love
huh.
the game, put over 100 hours into it. I haven't finished it, but I love it. I think it's amazing. It's just that it wasn't, it didn't quite make the list. I could get into reasons here and there and everywhere. It doesn't really matter, but um, I do love the game. Shout out to Elden Ring.
Jordan, what is your number 5?
Guys, this is another one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, I guess you could say kind of all of these are, especially where we're at in this list. Um, I was telling Jared before we got in here that I only had one exclusive on my list, which shows you kind of where we're at with third parties and how important they are to the industry and the quality that they're bringing to the table. But here at number 5 is something that Switch brought us from Nintendo, and it is Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Whoa.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So, on either of your lists,
Nope.
Once again, another game I want to get
not a
to.
not a huge surprise because yeah, a bunch of people haven't played this yet. That's okay. I get it because you wouldn't necessarily expect a Kirby game to be great, but it really was. It was something truly spectacular that I really wasn't expecting. This you could kind of think of it adjacent to Mario Odyssey. Kind of think of it as Kirby Odyssey, if you will. And yeah, a lot of platforming gameplay. It's very simple as far as like not very difficult to get through. You could see it as something that's made much for children, but it also has these challenge rooms or challenge levels that can kind of push you further and get you further into the different gameplay elements, the mouthful mode of it all, which is still I can't believe that they called it that. Shows you Nintendo's innocence, maybe.
Hmm.
But if you want that extra difficulty, it's there in the challenges and trying to 3-star those. And I kind of just like that arcadiness of like old school style games where you'll be running through a story campaign, but you get to go off and do this little separate challenge thing, see if you can get 3 stars or whatever. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land, it's got a great atmosphere, kind of like post-apocalyptic Kirby. A lot of good music, and sometimes it's okay for it to just be like good, clean fun. It doesn't always have to be Silent Hill, Dead Space, Resident Evil, you know, Elden Ring, kicking you in the teeth, hardcore, serious stuff. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a lighthearted, really excellent fun time.
Like
It's a
that.
nice curveball for your list. It's been a lot of survival
Yeah.
horror, and then you just take a
I know,
hard
right? Like
left turn.
dark and dreary with doom and survival horror and even controls all fucked up. Like,
Nice surprise.
there you go.
Are we on number 5 now, right for you, Dom?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. 5. This is another tough one because I kind of had to pick between two, but I have Star Wars Jedi Survivor in this spot. Um, very easily could have been Fallen Order instead, but I only wanted one on the list. And so I really like the best, lightsaber combat. I think I've played in a game. Um,
Nice.
and then like, just like basically what we did here was we combined Uncharted and uh, Dark Souls, and then put a Star Wars wrapper over top of it, and that's that's like a game made in heaven for me. That's like a recipe for everything, everything I want.
Do you two
And
guys consider this a Souls-like game?
I would light
it's
Souls like, but I would
it has at least some,
Souls-light.
yeah,
Souls
that might
light.
be
Yeah.
at least it might actually be closer in combat to Sekiro because it's more based on
Yeah, I got you.
like the guard
Valid, yeah.
breaks than the Dark Souls game. But third person combat where it's focused on a lot of blocking and parrying and stuff like that. So it has that and similar with Souls games, but also like fun, easy, streamlined kind of platforming and jumping around and climbing like you get in an Uncharted. Um, and then obviously like a really really great Star Wars story in it, in both of these Jedi games that Respawn made, which I remember like first hearing about it, like, oh, that's weird. The first person shooter studio, like, let's see what they got. But I think overall I really liked the story better in Survivor. The combat was mostly the same, just a couple extra things that they throw in there. Um, but yeah, the story just like, even though I'm a sucker for an Order 66 era story, this is now moving a little bit past that, whereas Fallen Order kind of like was during and immediate aftermath of Order 66. So, but yeah, I think like cool characters that they added in Survivor that were played really well. Um, so yeah, that's. I mean, I could talk about this game all day. I really love this one. But yeah, and while I'm on it too, like, rest in peace, Vince Zampella, who I don't know like how much of a hand
Dude.
he had in these Jedi games specifically, but he was definitely, obviously like the lead or the guy in charge of Respawn. So,
Yeah.
yeah, crazy.
I think he
Rest
was
in peace, absolutely.
heavily involved in the structure and setup of the first game and like advancing the trilogy. I think he was more hands off with 2 because I think that's when he started moving over to creating that new Battlefield team. But he was
Yep.
wholly instrumental, obviously, and yeah, rest in peace, Vince Zampella. He was a huge part of my gaming legacy with,
Yeah.
Modern Warfare. We've talked about multiple times, Dom, of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of
Oh
Duty
yeah.
4 Modern Warfare being pivotal to us, and he was at the front of that. So yeah, awful loss for the industry.
I don't think people have even truly, like, people have mentioned it, and I appreciate you mentioning it, Dom, but like, obviously, bigger outlets is what I'm talking about in the industry. I don't think truly recognized when he passed the impact that he had on the industry, because I think that's a
Mm.
true titan that we lost.
Yeah, for sure. My number 5 is my only game from last year. I have Blueprints.
Nice.
Blueprints is very likely going to be in my top 15, maybe even top 10 games of all time. It came out of
Damn.
nowhere. I love it. I'm typically not a huge puzzle guy. I like puzzles. I like, testing my brain. The way this game unfolds, I think a really fun niche thing is the guy who developed this game runs a website called what is it? I'm brain farting right now. It's called Mythic Spoiler, and it's been a site I've gone to the last like 25 years of my life. Basically, it's a site where they post Magic the Gathering sets, highly detailed pictures of the cards, and you got to check out the cards before the new set comes out. Anyways, it was crazy to me that he was the one who ended up developing this game. Very weird tangential connection there. But I love this game. I love the way it unfolds, the mystery of it, how every clue leads to another clue, which leads to a discovery, which leads to a bigger clue, which leads to a bigger mystery. And once you figure out one thing, you're like, oh, well, this actually means that the solution to this is likely this. And it all kind of stacks onto one another in a way that I think is close to genius. It's pretty brilliant. I am fascinated at how this game was put together in terms of the puzzle solutions and the RNG nature of it and the play testing that probably went into making this game what it is. And when you start the game, you often think like, oh, reaching room 46 is like the end of the game. No, it's just the beginning. And it's kind of like with Dark Souls down when you reach Anor Londo, it's like, oh, now the game starts. That's kind of how it feels.
One of those, yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I would suggest it to. Here's the thing. on a quality level, I would suggest it to everyone. On a content level, I'm very specific in who I recommend it to because this type of game isn't for everybody.
Yep.
But Blueprints is astounding, and I don't care if we ever get another game from him, and if he just chills on this alone, I think it is
Dang.
brilliant. I love Blueprints
All-timer,
so
huh?
much.
Shit.
Yeah.
Right. So
Jo-
my number 4 then. Well, we had bright and beautiful for a moment there with Kirby, but it's back to dark and dreary, gentlemen, because number 4 is Diablo 4. Played
Oh.
this on Xbox Series X when it launched, and also one of the few games that I played multiplayer. So one of my best buddies was living in Albuquerque at the time, and I was living in Denver, and we were playing online uh, through the entire campaign. So did a full character run uh, online. Since then, I've done the Vessel of Hatred expansion solo. So I've played, uh, both ways. And yeah, if you love loot grind games, if you love dark fantasy atmosphere, if you can get down with that top-down isometric perspective, uh, one of the most beautiful art styles in any game that I've ever seen with this. It is exquisite looking, uh, and definitely an upgrade from what a lot of people didn't love in Diablo 3, but visually speaking. But yeah, just it's one of those games, man, where it's certainly a podcast game or a chat with your friends game or a watch TV in the background type of thing because you're just getting better and better gear. I didn't really, you know, I tried to care about the story, and they've got some cool cutscenes and all that going on, but it is kind of like uh, ultra nerd fantasy crap at the end of the day, like push your glasses up type of thing. Um, it's some corny lore stuff as much as I try to get
Dweeb
into it.
core.
So yeah, weeb core type stuff, fantasy core type stuff. So um, and that's I hate to say this, but that feels like a lot of times is with Blizzard, whether it's science fiction or whether it's fantasy or whatever. It just kind of feels like
Full nerd.
the the nerd core version of whatever genre we're talking about. So nonetheless, the actual gameplay I'll get to now. I think, you know, some people look at these games and it's like, oh, you're just clicking or you're just tapping the button over and over again to watch your character attack. But I think that really comes from people that don't play, maybe turn-based games like we do, RPGs in the way that we might. So, if you're used to playing strategy stuff or you're used to playing turn-based RPGs, then this is going to feel right at home where you're kind of commanding your character more than you're playing your character, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, it isn't a standard action game where you're swinging the sword per button press. But if you can get behind the strategy of, building out these spells and building up this armor set or preparing your character in these different ways, and obviously it's real time, so you're making sure that you're healed and curing status effects. If the combination of all the sorts of things, along with the loot grind and the dark fantasy atmosphere, sounds fun, then yeah, I would highly recommend Diablo 4 because um, I've played a ton of it. And guys, I'm super hyped for expansion number 2 this spring.
Oh yeah, I think it's a game if I had somebody to play with, I would have enjoyed it more. I tried playing it solo, just
Yeah,
didn't click for me.
yep. It's one of those games that if you think about it too much, it can get boring real quick. And if you're not playing with somebody else, you might start going like, yeah, I'm not really into this. So I can totally feel that.
As a certified overthinker, I think you nailed why I didn't enjoy my time with
Well,
it.
it's just like you need it. It can be monotonous. Like you kind of
It's
need
junk
something
food.
else going on. It is junk food. It's like sometimes that's what you want. So, go there. But if you're not looking for junk food, don't go for Diablo.
But if I'm smashing a bag of junk food and I'm watching something I like, I won't realize I'm eating junk food. But if I start realizing what I'm doing, I'm be like, yo, you shouldn't be eating so much junk food, right?
You need
That's
the
the thing.
distraction with Diablo, man.
Yeah, exactly. We're on number 4, right? That was your number 4. So
Yes,
Dom, hit
sir.
us with
Yeah.
yours.
I got The Last of Us Part 2. Does anyone
That's
on
higher
this
on my
list?
list.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
Oh,
I did not see that
Yeah,
coming. Okay.
yeah.
see, and
The
I'm not even
certified
over here
PlayStation
representing
hater.
PlayStation over
Yeah.
here. This is crap.
Alrighty.
My number 4, Domini's Game of the Year 2021,
Oh, yeah, I know this.
Psychonauts 2.
Fun game.
Bringing
I
it.
I came to Psychonauts 1 very, very late. I think I played it right, Dom, the year before. I think I played it in 2020
Sounds
for the first time. I absolutely loved it. I talked about on the podcast numerous times how Psychonauts would have been a super formative game to me if I played it when it came out when I was way younger. It has all the touchstones of a Tim Burton movie. It's very quirky. It's really funny. It feels just like something that young Jerrad would have vibed with super hardcore. And when Psychonauts 2 came out, it basically took all of the flaws of that game and improved on them. Obviously, the visual fidelity, the overall narrative structure. I just love how weird and whimsical it is.
Yeah.
One of my favorite childhood movies is James and the Giant Peach. I don't know if you guys ever watched that growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Super weird, off-putting movie.
Mhm.
I don't know why any kids would like it, really, when you look at it. But it had its charm in its own unique way. And Psychonauts 2 is very much that. It's like some weird undertones of some not great stuff going on. Obviously, like Dr. Lobotomy, and even had like a really touching story where you go on an island to try to find this guy's lost lover. I don't know. It just did a wonderful, very like baseline video game experience where it didn't do anything innovative necessarily, but it did all of the touchstones which you'd have expected from like your favorite 2005 video game, elevated to 11. I think the collectible system was great. I think the worlds were fun. I think the characters were enjoyable. We don't really get a whole lot of games where it's like a bunch of young kids who have characters who are a little bit more developed than you would expect from a side character. I just really enjoyed my time with it. I knew I was probably going to like that game when it came out. I was stoked to have Dom enjoy it close to as much as I did. And it ended up being our game of the year that year, which was really fun to talk about. Yeah, I really enjoyed Psychonauts 2. I love Double Fine. I'm not so excited for Kiln just because it's not my jam. It looks like a fun little experimental multiplayer game. I can't wait to see what their next single player game is because Keeper was also a really delightful game. Didn't make my top 10,
Nice.
but shout out Psychonauts 2.
Yeah, I love
You got me
Psychonauts 2
hyped
is
for
so
that game. You
Yeah.
got me hyped for that game now. Alright,
Number
so
3, Jordan.
yeah, number 3. So I should have worded it earlier a little bit better when I said that there wasn't any FromSoft on my list because really there isn't any Souls on my list, but there is a FromSoft game, gentlemen. That is Armored Core
Oh,
6,
nice.
Fires
Okay.
of Rubicon for
I
the
need to get to it.
PlayStation
I own
5.
it. Dang
Holy
it.
God, Jerrad, this is a fucking game. And easily, I keep saying this, but easily one of my favorite games of all time. Um, hard as it could be, right? Hard as any Souls game. It just doesn't have the format of a Souls game, so you're not going from a bonfire to bonfire setup. Um, but it'll feel like it in the intensity, if that makes sense. Kind of in the way that Sekiro does. Um, you are working on your armored core in this ultra futuristic sci-fi setting. Your armored core is this big mech that you're taking out onto these missions. So instead of going from bonfire to bonfire, you're in this format of these selectable missions in a menu. And yeah, you're basically this pilot who's trying to work their way up and get these contracts and build a better and better machine as you go and kind of just perfect your setup. You can have all these different kinds of setups, whether it's a more speed based armored core or it's a more heavy tank guy. You can have ones that do better with flying and floating around the enemy, levitating around them, or somebody who just stays on the ground and gets hunkered down literally by some of the machinery. So all these amazing cool play styles. And if we're talking about gameplay being king, as I often do, Armored Core is right up that alley because, a lot of these games that I'm describing on here, whether it's Doom Eternal or Armored Core, um, or some of the ones that I mentioned in my honorable mentions off mic, I love high speed, high intensity combat and gameplay. And uh, Armored Core really gives you that adrenaline rush, and it's very difficult. So, if you're not into hard games, I wouldn't recommend it. But I know you two guys are, and well, it's not an amazing story like some of the other Souls games tell from Software, but has a cool atmosphere and has some cool. It's like a more esoteric kind of story. It's a little bit just lighter on story, but still really cool nonetheless. So
I'm stoked
highly,
they got their
highly
one for
recommend
them.
AC6. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Sorry, I'm excited that they got their one for them. FromSoftware makes all of these Souls games, right? It's for us. They make all these games for us.
Yes.
Then they were like, no, we're gonna make one for us. We're gonna go back to Armored Core. We're gonna make one for us.
Yeah,
And
this is
I'm
not their A team. This is not Miyazaki. This is not a big money maker for them, but it's such a cool game. And obviously, it's six. I've never played any other Armored Core game. Watched some videos on them, but you
no one
definitely
really
don't
had.
need all of this lore or story from previous titles to get into this one. You can just jump in and have a great time with, in my opinion, one of the best experiences ever.
Hell
AC6.
yeah. Number 3, Dom.
Now we're on to Spider-Man, unless someone else has a higher.
There we go.
Well, I had it at 7, so yeah.
So yeah, this
Now,
is
just to be
Spider-Man.
clear, we're talking about Spider-Man on the PS4 with our Peter Parker, not this fucking switcheroo bullshit where they
Oh,
change the
that face
guy's
swap.
face.
Yeah,
Just to be
I
clear, we're
forget
not talking
about
about
that.
director's remastered, final cut where they changed it.
Yeah, I mean, I played the original. I never got around to the remaster, but yeah, I forgot about that whole they switched the physical actor. What that is the interesting choice,
It's
but
I'll
um
never get over it. I had to get in on that. I'll never get over it.
um but no, like this one. I mean, this game just like hit every category super well. I feel like gameplay is like as good as it gets. The web swinging is incredible. Combat feels like an Arkham game, but even better, and so many fun abilities, all that kind of stuff. But I think what for me puts this one above like its two sequels is just the story in this game was also next level. Like potentially, like maybe my favorite Spider-Man story, like even out of
Okay.
any of the movies. There's so many story beats that were really cool. I won't go ahead and spoil it all, but a lot of emotional beats that just like were absolute sledgehammers to the gut as well. But yeah, like this was just such a cool game, and I feel like it raised the bar for games and everything that would come out after it in so many ways. So yeah, shout out Spider-Man,
The
PS4
web swinging,
2018.
right?
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I just want to add real quick. To me, it's my favorite superhero video game of all time.
Nice.
I love Batman Arkham Asylum for sure, but Spider-Man is more my guy, whereas I know Batman is very much
Yeah.
more Dom's guy, which I'm excited to see Spider-Man be so high on his list. It's just one of those things where you see your dream of what your favorite superhero's best video game could be, and it comes to life.
yep.
Like the swinging in
Yes.
that game is what you imagine what it felt like on the PS1 and PS2. And to Dom's point, I think the emotional resonance, even though it's a story we've seen from some aspects for Peter Parker, emotionally hit like a ton of bricks. I remember crying towards the end of that game. It hit me hard, even though you
Mhm.
knew kind of where it was landing. I think the way they executed it with the performances was really well done. I think the way they implemented Doc Ock and Mr. Negative, who was new to a lot of people who didn't just watch who only watched the Spider-Man movies. I'm a big comic guy, which I also loved all of the neat little touchstones and Easter eggs in the game of being like, oh, is this guy going to be in the sequel? Which to that point, Logan Moore, who writes for comicbook.com now, I remember us doing an
Shout out.
episode, I believe you were on that too, Dom, where we kind of predicted and talked about what we wanted in a sequel for Spider-Man 2, which I thought was a really special podcast memory for me. So, yeah, I loved Marvel's Spider-Man to death. So
So
much.
so good.
Yeah.
Great games.
My number 3, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yep.
Uh, I know a
Well
lot of people
mentioned.
found this game boring at the time. I'm like, get an attention span. I absolutely love the systems in the game. I love the attention to detail. There was a whole discussion about horse balls when the game came out, about how
Oh my
depending on
gosh.
the temperature where you have the
Yep.
horse, their testicles expand or retract, which I thought was
Shrink
funny.
in the snow.
Sadie Adler is one of my favorite. She's probably up
Yeah.
there with Cassandra from Assassin's Creed as one of my favorite female video game characters of all time.
Yes.
I absolutely love her story. I think it's awesome. You meet her as this widow. Well, I guess she's a wife, and then she quickly becomes a widow. And then her story arc of turning into a bounty hunter and stuff is really awesome. I think oftentimes, not only in video games in general, but in video games set in these time periods, a lot of times creators fail to give female characters worthwhile and awesome stories and character arcs. And I think they absolutely nailed that. Obviously, Rockstar has a lot of shortcomings when it comes to their storytelling in a lot of ways. And I think this one, some of the weaknesses I find in Rockstar games in terms of their shooting mechanics don't feel as bad in a game set this long ago. Whereas when you play like a GTA 5 and the shooting mechanics are, in my opinion, bad, they stand out much more because you expect modern shooting to feel a lot different, right? So I think the setting kind of helps alleviate those issues. The narrative is obviously incredible. I think the performances throughout are awesome. Yeah, I just think it's a very good game, and I think anybody who takes the time and has the attention span to play through it will see how special it is. And it's one of those games, like a lot of Rockstar games in some ways, where you can always find Easter eggs, and the experiences you have are often ones that other people don't. Like I remember running into a guy in the very north of the map that was working on robotics, and he was putting together like his own Frankenstein monster. And I talked to a bunch of people who had been playing through the game, and they had no idea what the hell I was talking about. Or
Yeah.
the whole Gavin mystery, where you run into that guy, he's screaming for his friend, "Where's Gavin? Gavin, I can't find Gavin," which led to a bunch of people scouring the whole map to try to find a guy named Gavin and tie it together to see what was happening. In addition to all of the hunting and the legendary animals, it's an impeccable, well-crafted game. In my opinion, I don't know, and I don't think GTA 6 can top that, just because there's a lot more faults that can be had, like I mentioned with the shooting mechanics and stuff. But yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2, absolutely special.
Yeah, that game was so good. I feel bad it's not on my list.
Honorable
Your
mention, but
number. Sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
I was just gonna say the gameplay that you mentioned it kind of kept it out of the list for me because it's just even with it being in old timey times, it feels bad to play, man.
That's fair. I'm not gonna discount that. It's the attention span stuff that pisses me off. The criticism,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Of like, oh, it's boring.
the
I can't
game's
get with
not that
that.
long, and even
Yeah.
with we won't spoil anything, but the kind of how long the end part is, let's say,
Yeah,
um,
that's a huge chunk.
The epilogue, yeah.
it's still just like, dude, it's not that long. John
Yeah,
was talking
exactly.
about
But
Persona 5 Royal. Ask him about that.
exactly. You're number 2, Jordan.
Yes, sir. Not only one of my favorite games of all time, but I think one of the best games ever created. If you guys like how hard Souls games are for action combat, this has that level of difficulty in the strategy genre. I played it on my personal computer, gentlemen, and it's called Frostpunk.
Oh,
Oh, cool.
Is this on anybody's list?
no.
No, no, no. I've never
No.
played it.
Yeah, so this is a steampunk in frozen tundra set game where you're basically these escapees from London in this cold winter apocalyptic setting, and you have this furnace in the middle of this little city builder scenario that you have, and you just got to keep everybody warm and surviving, and extracting coal and building things with wood, and you know there'll be all sorts of challenges. This game is hard as a motherfucker. One of the toughest games I've ever played, way more than Bloodborne, way more than a lot of this action stuff that we talk about. Doom Eternal, way harder than Doom Eternal, because they will just throw everything at you, and you're already at your wits' end on your back foot, completely against the wall. So, if you're into one of the toughest experiences that you could imagine, uh, in a really cool story, scenario, world setting of this strategy game, and you could, get down with a city builder. Um, I I truly can't recommend Frostpunk enough if you can get past the difficulty.
Have you played the sequel yet?
I have not. I just got into Frostpunk at the end of last year, and
Oh,
so
cool.
uh, Frostpunk 2 is high on my list, um, as well as the remake for the original Frostpunk that they're working on.
Hell yeah. Uh, Dom, I'm guessing your number 2 is Last of Us Part 2?
No, that was 4, so it must be 2 for you or something. Because my number 2 is God of War 2018.
Okay.
Um,
That was my number 9.
yeah, okay, there we go. Now that's making sense. But no, this game was just sick. Uh, like I talked about earlier, where like everything that happens in the game, like all your meters, all your items, the collectibles, how you level up, everything just like is contextualized perfectly in the game, which I love that shit. And then just but more than anything, like the narrative of this game, it, just not what anyone probably expected. Coming off of all the previous God of War games, where we just kind of shifted tone entirely, and now we're instead of just outward rage all the time, we're Kratos as a dad now, and has to start to learn to to be a dad and from an emotional perspective too. And like that sounds almost corny saying it, but the game is incredible, and because of how it handles all that. Um, um, Also super fun, like awesome combat, cool puzzles, awesome world that like unlocks as you go through it, all that kind of good stuff there too. But there's so many good things you could say about this game. Mimir, the head that you carry on your waist as your Cortana or your Navi or whatever else you'd call those characters to guide you. But so much cool stuff in God of War 2018.
The reason it's lower for me is the more I've thought about it, I think I like God of War 2018's gameplay a lot, but I like Ragnarok's narrative more. Um, yeah, I think for me, I think the narrative is stronger in 2, but the gameplay is stronger in 1. I think it's a little bloated in 2. So I think it would have been higher for me if I enjoyed the narrative more. But I just like a lot of the stuff that happens with Brock and Sindri in 2, as well
Oh
as
yeah, that was
obviously
good.
Atreus. And yeah, I prefer that narrative a little bit more. So it would have been higher for me. But what an incredible game. My number 2, like we mentioned, Last of Us Part 2. So that was your number 4, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
People have talked this game to death. I guess I'll mention real quick. The reason it's so high on my list is I love when subversion is done really well, and in my opinion, I think it's done really well in Last of Us Part 2.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people there's a whole conversation to be had about the leak of this game and the incel
Right.
culture and people being mad about Abby and all that stuff. That aside, putting all that to the wayside, for me personally, I think the subversion of the narrative really spoke to me because it challenged me as someone experiencing the game to see things and let it play out from the artist's perspective. And people can disagree with that. Artist subjective, that's totally fine. But for me, having to see Abby's perspective and understand where she comes from and learning about Levi and I don't know, I just think it was all really well done. I think turning Allie's story on its head and showing her from a non-heroic perspective, I think worked for me really well. And by the end of it, yeah, Ellie isn't necessarily a hero. She just like Joel wasn't by the end of 1, in my opinion. Um, from a visual fidelity standpoint, I think it's incredible. I think the gameplay is a step up from 1. I'm someone who maybe doesn't love 1 as much as a lot of other people. I still consider it like a very well done game, and probably if I had to like rate it like a 9, 9.5,
Wow.
but I don't think I like it as much as a lot of other people from a gameplay perspective. I think the narrative is really good. But yeah, Last of Us Part 2 hit on, like we talked about very early in this podcast, of all of these things marrying together and working really well. For me, the subversion of Abby and that whole thing was nailed, and I absolutely enjoyed it, which is funny because I didn't think so, and I'm not necessarily the quote-unquote Sony pony, the PlayStation guy, but I really, really, as time has gone on, I've gotten to appreciate that game a lot more.
I mean, who among us didn't, at the very least, roll our eyes all the way into the back of our heads when leave that cliffhanger, and then you're playing as Abby, and we're just kind of like, are you serious? Is this what we're doing? Like, really? Right now? But then by the end of it, I ended up like thinking the same way you are, Jerry. Where I'm like, okay, no, this was cool. This was worth it, and it starts to creep up. Like, it's so cool how they made Ellie the villain, or at least as you're from Abby's perspective, and you're going through and you're hearing and seeing all about like all this all the like the wake of violence that Ellie is leaving behind, and you're just seeing it like, oh, this is terrifying. But then it kind of makes you connect back, like, well, that was me doing it a couple hours ago, though. So like, shit, like, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, the way that worked, it all came together like really well for me. Makes you kind of feel like crap after playing the whole thing, though. It kind of like
It's funny
not in the
because
best
at the end of
mood.
that game, the like biker gang sequence feels a little bit like what's going on here. But to me,
Hmm.
the beach sequence specifically is harrowing, and
Yeah.
it cut deep for me. And I was like,
Hmm.
wow. And it kind of justified the act before that of like, what's going on here? Why are we introducing this motorcycle gang? But what it led to paid off for me. So yeah, that's why Last of Us Part 2 is so high up. And on my all-time list, it's my fifth favorite game of all time on my
Dang.
top 100.
Okay. All right. That's
Yeah.
cool.
We're here at number one, Jordan. What is your number
Yeah.
one of the last 10 years?
Quick thoughts on Last of Us Part 2 for me. It is probably the most emotional game I've ever played of all time. Um, I do want to say this. I replayed it on chronological cut last year when that came out, so that was my
Oh.
second time playing it. I've experienced it twice through, and I just want to say, fuck Abby. So my number one game, I actually played this on the original Nintendo Switch, but it is different almost than any other game that I feel like not only I've played, but that you could play. Uh, and one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in any form of fiction. That is Citizen Sleeper. Uh,
Ooh.
Hell
Okay.
yeah.
it is
Okay.
a narrative-based, dice rolling RPG, I guess you could say. Kind of a visual novel.
I'd call it an RPG.
Yeah, yeah, I think it does branch into RPG. The closest game to this, if you guys really want a format scenario, is Disco Elysium. But it doesn't. Disco Elysium doesn't have the same elements that I love about Citizen Sleeper, so it is different. But Citizen Sleeper is a cyberpunk game where you are this character trying to navigate this world, kind of waking up into it, and you have to do these dice rolls in order to pass or fail on these tasks, on these different you know items that you're trying to conquer. So it is very heavy on the narrative, and you're going to be reading a ton of text, learning a lot about the characters, really sinking into the vibe of this world, and you're going to be listening to some of the best music ever created for a video game, in my opinion. Up there with Persona, like Don was talking about earlier, up there with Final Fantasy, up there with Doom Eternal, like I mentioned earlier. So uh, if you're down for all those crazy things to mix together, um, and you want this really cool dice roll system that I think you can get really into, even though you can kind of learn how to conquer it and not necessarily break it, but just kind of master it towards the end of the game. Um, it's just an extraordinary experience. Highly, highly, highly recommend Citizen Sleeper.
Yeah. I gotta play it. I
Both
bought it,
games
but I haven't played it.
both games are in my top 100, and I was debating where Citizen Sleeper 2 is going to be if it was going to make the list because I prefer 2 over 1, but I'm with Jordan. They're both incredible games. And I recently saw an indie game pop up on Blue Sky, the first Citizen Sleeper like I've seen, Jordan.
Oh
With the
yeah,
same dice mechanic and everything. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see.
what's that one called?
I saw it in passing on my timeline, to be quite
I
honest.
saw.
But I was
I'm
like,
looking
oh,
at this game called Esoteric Ebb. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but
maybe
it's
that's what it was.
close.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of hype this year. Yeah, maybe that's what it
And
was.
so, yeah, we're starting to get there, but Citizen Sleeper is just so unique. And I will just note that I haven't played the second one yet because recently I did a playthrough back through the first game to actually go through the DLC this time. So I wanted to get that out of the way before I go into the second game. So it could have easily, been right up here at the top of the list if I had played it. Just wanted to shout that out.
Hell yeah. What is your number one, Dom?
But it's finally time. It's finally time to talk about Elden Ring.
There we go.
Oh, I'm surprised Breath of the Wild didn't make the list, but I guess Tears of the Kingdom was its stand-in.
Yeah, and again, I did that thing where like I don't want to like overrepresent franchises.
Yeah.
Even I don't know. There's a whole argument there that I'm willing to hear, but not today. So instead, I just thought it was more fun to get a different mix. So yeah, Elden Ring, because it's better than Breath of the Wild for one. It after playing Breath of the Wild in 2017, and then 5 years later, Elden Ring comes around and it does everything that I loved most about Breath of the Wild, but did it as a Souls game. So it's sort of like Jedi Survivor, where it combined a lot of different elements from different games in a way that felt like they did it just for me. So I'm very thankful. um, but yeah, the exploration in this game, and exploration was already fun in most of the other Souls games anyway. But this brought it up to like Breath of the Wild levels. It really expanded on that, while still having that difficult, fun Souls combat. So, and somehow it did it in a way that worked. It didn't feel like awkward expanding the world as much as it did, and having so many big open parts. Like they still were able to maintain like, some areas were still dungeons where you still got that close corridor, Bloodborne, Dark Souls kind of feel in some of those levels, but then also the bigger areas were opened up. So like the way it brought a Souls game into a huge open world, which is really well done, because that could have been bad. Like that could have not worked out. Trying to
Like
change
with Breath of the Wild, where
like
people
that.
complained where traditional dungeons weren't in it, right? That could have easily
Exactly.
happened.
Yeah. So they didn't fall in that same into that same trap that Breath of the Wild did in that sense, I think.
Some
But
of the best
yeah.
exploration in all of gaming.
The sense of
Yeah.
discovery is the
Yes.
best
Yep.
in a Souls-like game,
Yes.
period.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Easily. So I don't know. This was like you said, top 10 games of the last decade, and I didn't even have to I couldn't even blink before. I already knew Elden Ring was the top of
Yeah.
this list for sure. So the rest was challenging, but
That's awesome.
Elden, it was just so damn good. It's like just A tier, S tier rather.
It's to your point. I'm like, for my all-time list, I have Elden Ring like in the top 15. I think it's like 13. It's just such an incredible experience. I haven't gotten to Shadow of the Erd Tree yet. So I'm wondering if it'll elevate it for me on my all-time list once I get through that.
They did the way they managed like experience and leveling up for a DLC with Erd Tree is really cool. Not everyone might like the way they handled it, but it was new to me at least how they managed that system. So I thought that was pretty cool. But
Hell yeah.
that whole DLC was great too. In general.
The good thing is we had all three different games as our number one, and two of us had indie games, which I think is cool. My number one, Inside. It is my fourth favorite game of all time. The only game of the top 4 that came out in the last 10 years. We've talked about in private messaging and stuff, Jordan, how much we want another Playdead game. Like, just give us another goddamn game,
So
Playdead.
sad, yeah.
Thankfully, we've gotten Cocoon and other titles from members who have split off from Playdead, but to me, Inside is a perfect game in its genre as a puzzle platformer. I think it is exceptional in everything it does. I think the one criticism it has is actually its strength, and that it has a very ambiguous, artistic-driven ending. I don't want to spoil it for people, but people are like, oh, what's the point? And I think if you have to ask yourself that, maybe you should sit down and gather your thoughts and understand what you played. And I don't know. It just, to me, it is one of the best expressions of art in its form. And I absolutely adore it. I loved Limbo at the time. Limbo is one of the games that, alongside Super Meat Boy and a couple of other titles, really had me fall in love with indie games. And I think it was for a whole generation of gamers. And Inside, very much like Mass Effect 2 is to me, doubled down on what I love from a first experience and gave me something of higher quality. And I don't know, Inside to me is a game I try to play at least once a year. It's a very short game. You can play it in one sitting if you want to. I highly suggest it to anyone who's interested in the genre. I think it delivers creepiness in a 2D perspective that we rarely see outside of a franchise that Jordan and I love, and I think, Dom, you have some experience with, which is Little Nightmares.
Yeah.
I just absolutely adore Inside, and I'm happy to list it as my number one of the last 10 years.
Nice. I like that. Inside was sick. That was such a weird, cool game. I love the shit out of that.
Yeah, I'm just glad it exists. That's the thing.
Personally, I like Little Nightmares 2 a little bit more, but Little Nightmares 2 wouldn't be what it is without Inside, so I have to acknowledge that.
It's two pints of my favorite ice cream, man. Give me either one. I'm
Yep.
gonna go ham. You know what I mean? I don't mind. Those are our lists of our top 10 games of the last 10 years. I want to shout out Jordan for joining us for the special anniversary episode.
Thanks
Awesome
for
having you back on the pod in 6 years. I'm glad to reconnect with you. For everyone out there listening, I want to thank you for checking out the Controlled Interests Gamecast. Link to our socials, including Blue Sky, as well as the podcast feeds, can be found in the YouTube description. Before the final closing, Jordan, do you have any final words to the audience about gaming, whatever you'd like?
Play what you want to play, man. You got to do it. If you're playing shit because of it being the new thing, or you feel like you have to, or you got to do your dailies on this online game or whatever, fuck all that. You got to play what you want to play and have a good time doing it.
Get out of the rat race. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Everyone out there listening, please let us know what your top 10 games of the last 10 years are, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.